So a dog on a lead, a really long lead. Yeah, I am attempting to be authentic. Authentic. The root word is author. Author, authority. To be the authority of one's own life. A sense of inner authority. Here's my animal self, externalized in the familiar magical being as a dog. Here's a couple of fences to cross over. Sit, Shadow. Sit. He's letting the dog, animal nature, off his lead. He's going to run wild. Sit, Shadow. Sit. Sit. Good boy. Go on. Whoa, yeah. So, the animal nature is needy. It's exuberant, it's energetic, it kind of lacks direction, but it has its own goals. He's going to want to go over there and start prancing around the place, looking for, I don't know what it is, little mice or something. Let's see, here we've got loads of ragworth. Those ragworth are actually fairy plants. They're beautiful for the bees. This place is like a gold mine of these plants. Yeah. But they're considered weeds compared to grass, cows to be slaughtered, cows to be milked, other kinds of beef to be slaughtered. There's all the nettles. There's Shadow doing his prancing thing. Yeah. But here's this field. And this farmer's quite progressive, and he's using the AI apparently to analyze his soil to see what the soil needs, and he's following farming methods that are different. So this field was full of this kind of grass, and then he spread loads of lime, and the lime burned off whatever was growing. So they cut the hay and all, cut the grass really short, took the hay away, spread the lime. The lime chemically burned all the grass, and then they sowed loads of seeds at the back of a tractor, and it's all of these herbs. See, most of this grass is actually clover, and there's plantain and whatever other kinds of things. Must be 5, 6, 7 different herbs, because he realizes, wow, that saves having to put artificial fertilizer, and that makes the milk much better and healthier, and that makes the meat healthier, and that means less medicine for the animals to try and keep them healthy and all of that kind of stuff. Anyway, what I was initially going to talk about actually is authenticity and mental health, and my own feeling much better these days, which is all about the authorship of the stories I tell myself, my inner storytelling, and the reflecting back on experiences, and my conscience, the idea of a guilty conscience, that maybe I was too much for people in the past, that I'm afraid of blowing people's minds because the things I can say can be so effective, and I can put so many ideas together. I can talk the hind legs off a donkey kind of thing, and I guess that's a stage prop donkey where there's two people in the donkey, one's the front and one's the back of the donkey. But anyway, yeah, so I am attempting to get to a point where I am willing to be one of these talking heads professionally. I'm trying to turn myself around to allow myself to monetize in the modern world, to work in the digital realm, to allow my digital twin to have agency, to work with the artificial intelligence to be able to do the computer programming that would help me make a website that's able to do the kind of things and represent the kind of things that I would like to do and represent in the world, to be able to share communications with people, to be able to free myself of my own mental soul traps, and be able to afford the kind of medicines and the kind of lifestyle that I would like for my kids to have available to them, so that we could perhaps move to a different part of the world or go on a holiday somewhere, or all of those things which money can facilitate. And at this stage I would like to be able to make money in order to do things in the world, because money is power, and power is the ability to do things, and ability is to do with responsibility. And a lot of why I haven't wanted to put myself out there in any kind of a responsible manner is because I don't want to have to respond. I like being free to say whatever I like, and therefore I like the psychosis, because psychosis is being able to say whatever you like and think whatever you like, and not actually having to justify everything to other people who may not see things the same way as I see things. And again, the definition of psychosis is to think and say things that are not the accepted norms of society. And so society doesn't really like having people going around saying crazy things in case other people start thinking those crazy things are true, and then you have conflict in society. So society is divided along the lines of left and right. One is progressive, one is regressive, one is future based, one is past based, all that kind of thing. So yeah, anyway, I am edging closer to the actual processing the words I've written into a book form, and then stick my kids' images and photographs, and get the AI to sketch out some of the ideas that I have that I'm not very good at drawing, and I can't afford to employ someone else to do the drawing of them, but they're just basically schematic ideas to illustrate what I'm trying to explain to other people about how language forms, how language informs, and information as an example of what tokenization is in terms of how language fits together like Lego blocks and all of that kind of thing. But what I really want to say is, in my own authorship, in my own relationship with myself, I am getting a little bit easier and better at accepting that I may be a genius, but a crazy genius, but a mad genius, and I may be a bit guilty about my past because I have been so outspoken at times. And the ability to temper myself, to go beyond my temperament, to stop holding myself back and allow myself to break free from the ties with which I'm bound, from my loyalties, which are loyal ties to those I love, which ultimately is family, because when you're a child, one is dependent on the parents, and one is, I want to say something about siblings, but it's hard to say. One is lassoed with one's siblings. But I'm talking about ropes, and I'm talking about tethering, and knots, and frayed ropes, and fathoming that a fathom is tying a knot on a piece of rope with a weight at the bottom, so that when you throw the weighted rope off the back of a boat, it will plumb the depths to get to the ocean floor by the anchor to see how deep is this part of the lake or the ocean or the sea or whatever. But also, if you have a rope and you tie knots in it at regular intervals and throw it off the back of a boat so that it is floating on the surface in the wake of your relationship with the sea, then you can see how fast your boat is traveling at a rate of knots, which is where it comes from, in traveling across the surface of the sea or the lake or whatever the body of water is. And a body of water is like emotions, and the air is like thoughts. And to be a teller, to account for, to be a storyteller, to have an overview of history, to be able to view the history and model onto the future, to predict what the future probabilities may be, all of that is very airy. And so really there's only air and water, thoughts and feelings, fairies and mermaids. And yeah, psychosis. What I'm on about here is the god of psychosis, which is now the hallucinating artificial intelligence that's able to talk back to us. The voice of God in computer form, reflecting back whatever version of madness we may have in a screen, such as me looking in my own reflection in this smart screen, which is recording with a screen grab program, which I'm going to upload onto YouTube type of thing. But yeah, with the AI, it must be obvious stuff I could have done 2 or 3 years ago. Some guy sent me a link saying you should have your podcast and you can put it out on all the different platforms with this program. You just record the thing and then it puts it out on all these different platforms. You monetize it and then people get to hear what you're on about, because what you're on about is really good. And they become your fans and your followers and all of that kind of thing, and you make a living and it's all good. And I was like, I don't really want the responsibility of having to do that because of authenticity, because what happens is I'd be giving some sort of a outside authority, some sort of power over my inner authority, and I'd have to have some sort of a discipline to keep doing things in a regular manner and keep showing up, as they call it, and maintain a public face and persona with a reputation type thing. And all of that's just too fucking much for me. In my past, I have stuff that I needed to sort out in myself, and I just didn't want to give away my time, and in many ways I just want to heal my own arthritis, heal my feelings, be able to accept that I'm hypersensitive, stop comparing myself to other people in a way where I'm judging myself. Recognize that in my birth chart, right? So here's the keys to things. In my birth chart in astrology, which loads of people will be like, oh, he's into astrology, that's a fucking nut job, and not listen to him, he's daft. And a whole other lot of people will be like, oh, he really understands astrology quite well, I'm going to listen to him because I like astrology. So basically anything one says, some set of people are going to be like, I agree with that, and another set of people are going to be like, that's bollocks, I don't agree with that. But in my astrology, in my birth chart, I've got Sun conjunct Pluto, Sun conjunct Pluto, and that means the inner core of my solar system is exactly aligned with the outer tiny little planetoid called Pluto, which is the king of the underworld. So my overworld and my underworld are completely on top of each other, and they're in the 9th house. Are they? Wherever they are. I think they're in the 9th house. Doesn't really matter. Yeah, 9th house. Yeah, that's right. But I've also got Saturn in Cancer in the 7th house. And it's square exactly to my Sun conjunct Pluto. And that means that my Saturn in the 7th house of other people in Cancer, in the home, will hold me back, like putting a really heavy brake on when I'm driving along, so that if I start driving in a certain direction, these brakes will come on and slam the brakes on, and somebody will smash me in the head and say, stop saying that stuff, you psychotic lunatic, you're upsetting people by being outspoken, you're disturbing the peace. But if I'm quite good in alignment and the stuff I'm saying is delivered more jovially or whatever, then it's exactly trine to my Jupiter in Aquarius in the 2nd house. And so if I speak stuff in a Jupiter in Aquarian in the 2nd house kind of way, then it's very expansive in humanity, and everyone's like, wow, that's great, dude, you're like speaking in tongues, and it's really cool and artistic and lovely and expansive. So I've got these two ways. One is either accelerating and being accepted, and the other one is slamming the brakes on and being rejected. And yeah, I've had to learn how to drive my vehicle in a way that is safe. Now, with the AI, I have friends who are using the AI and it's kind of driving them a bit crazy because they're believing that it's actually a friend and it's actually conscious and all that kind of stuff. And in some ways maybe it is, and I have been wondering about these questions myself, but because of my computery science background, understanding information, I kind of know that actually it's just an information field, and like a mirror, you can see a human reflection in the mirror when you look in it, kind of thing. And you can see anything else in the mirror if you point it in that direction. So you can learn about physics, you can learn about absolutely anything from the AI, because it's just reflecting back in the information space of language. Whether that's images, information, science, music, whatever it may be. But it's just reflecting back whatever has been put into it. And so it's creating in the image of its own creation. And so people can drive themselves crazy in that vehicle. And they've put guardrails on it to try and make it safer. But like a speed limit in a vehicle, if people break what the speed limit is and crash, there's no point in suing the car manufacturers for the fact that you broke the speed limit, didn't follow the rules of the road, and crashed your vehicle and possibly led other people astray too. So all of that stuff's getting worked out these days by what's going on with the AI being a vehicle for reflecting upon ourselves in the vast field of knowledge, to ultimately become conscious of what time is and break free from the constraints of time, or learn to live within the constraints of time in a way that is joyful rather than self-imprisoning. But I'm just trying to overcome the idea that I'm saying too much in ways which is too difficult to follow, and that it might be blowing minds, or it might be hurting people who feel as if I'm personally belittling the ideas that other people may have, or that I'm bragging or self-obsessed or crazy, or all of those kind of self-accusations that I have internalized from other people who exerted those judgments upon me back in the past, for which I feel guilty for pressing all those buttons that I pressed, whether positively or negatively, in society, particularly during my 20s, kind of thing. So yeah, I'm wide open to any encouragement that anyone wants to give me there, because I am in some ways really struggling to express and concentrate. And yeah, Tara was telling me that there's someone we knew once upon a time. We were in a play called The Southwark Mysteries, written by a guy called John Crow. We acted in it one weekend, did a few weeks rehearsing. But one of the other people who was rehearsing with it is this lady who's a banker, and therefore she has more money than the likes of us. And therefore she skipped the ADHD, the attention deficit, whatever it's called, thingamajig. She skipped the NHS waiting list type of thing by just paying to be seen, and therefore being on a more fast track than the 2-year waiting list, being told you're not even going to get seen, mate, that I'm getting up here for my ADHD that everyone's telling me I blatantly obviously have, well masked, and when I rip the mask off, well revealed. Anyway, yeah, so Tara was saying she'd read a post by the lady who has finally gotten the ADHD drugs, which are essentially methamphetamine or speed, which in ADHD type of brain chemistry actually allows things to slow down rather than get frantically sped up. What it allows is to clarify all the thoughts instead of having too many thoughts stacked on top of each other, that it's just a load of noise. And she gave the analogy that taking these chemical pills just since yesterday, just on her first try with these things. It was like, that buzz that's in a fridge, the fridge is on and it's kind of buzzing in the background, or any of those other kind of electrical sounds that are kind of buzzing in the background like a background radiation sound. And taking this pill of these chemicals allow a chemical change in her frequency code. That's like those interference signals disappear and it's actual silence, and one can actually hear stillness and be able to see clearly those things that one would like to do in a nice little clear list, instead of a Brownian motion of too much information flying around the place, conflicting with each other or whatever. So I am these days attempting to gain that kind of clarity just by thought, without having to take a physical substance. But I was wanting to experiment with taking a physical substance, but I don't know how to get my hands on any of those things. I've no interest really in buying speed off the black market to experiment with it, because for one thing, it won't be a medical grade speed. It'll be some sort of a fucking hodgepodge of shite type thing, household cleaner or fentanyl or whatever the hell else might be mixed in. So those chemical equations, but because of my comprehension of metaphysics, it must be possible to alter one's brain chemistry through thought. So one can drive oneself crazy with thought, which is going to manifest in a chemical imbalance, but one can presumably bring oneself to a state of clarity and sanity through meditation by centering oneself in stillness. So that stillness that our friend has, or acquaintance has, achieved through the taking of a physical substance to ground all the thought that she's put into it and the effort that she's put into it to concentrate, to get the medical help, with the help of holding down a job that pays enough money that she could afford to get the medical help. But I've been attempting the experiment to see if I can achieve that kind of clarity just by living and being conscious and guilty, to stop the judgment of my guilty conscience and forgive, and by forgiving to become free of the mental prison of the past feelings that I once was like collecting all these feelings, because I had this piece of poetry that said, who is left who would ever want to feel all the feelings which nobody in their right mind would ever want to feel? As in, who would want to feel all the negative feelings which everyone else is projecting onto others because they don't want to keep the negative feelings, so they see it in other people. And I was following this intuition that's like, all those feelings which nobody wants, I'm going to collect all those feelings and nurture them. A bit like the Christ Saviour idea of taking on all the sins of the world, where everyone's missing the mark and shooting their arrows and all that kind of thing, that I would take on all those slings and arrows of Shakespeare's outrageous fortune and attempt to take them on in a homeopathic fashion and raise up the frequency to the highest essence, so that it all becomes clarity, and that clarity could be communicated just by being in the world in a homeopathic sense, in the path of a homeo. I see a path home. I see a path home. Homeopathic remedy. As a living being embodied, a bit like a Buddha under a Bodhi tree, with his begging bowl of rice to consume from the generous child who had empathy for the skinny wraith who was essentially trying to commit suicide through spirituality, kind of thing. Yeah, so on and on and on, the words always flow. But there you go, I guess I might as well leave that there then. Bye. Oh yeah, do try and give me feedback if you're listening to this at all, even if you just like put a smiley face or a thumbs up or a letter X or whatever, because the YouTube channel or the Facebook video or whatever else it might be is going to say, oh, all these people have viewed, 222 people viewed your video, and yet 7 people left an emoticon and 1 person left a comment. And that leaves me thinking, wow, how can anyone listen to a video like this and not leave a comment? But I would listen to a video like this and not bother leaving a comment. I mean, this is what we do. This is the entrainment type thing. Anyway, bye.